Welcome to the Crucible, the first ever, I believe, podcast for the new FFG game Keyforge. I'm Tiny Grimes, and I'm joined every week by...
What's up, guys? I'm Mike.
That's right. He's known by the Rebel Spy if you're a Star Wars Destiny fan. Before we get into it, we're not going to do the 10-minute introduction of ourselves, but real briefly, why you should listen to us. I'm an avid FFG card game player. I've played at least 3 games at the highest level. I've made podcasts for way too many games. So many, in fact, that lots of my friends are going to mock me openly for making yet another one. Mike, tell us a little about yourself.
Including me.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm Mike. I've been playing card since I was a little kid. When I was growing up, I pretty much only played with my younger brothers. I never actually went out and played in events and stuff like that. But when Star Wars Destiny was coming out, I got really excited about that, got really into the community, and have become a sort of like competitive-ish player, but, you know, a member of the community. So if you know me, you would probably know me from there. And that's pretty much it.
I'd say Mike's pretty dang good. He's selling himself a little short there. That's okay. He's allowed to do that. All right, Mike. We got a new game here, Keyforge. Let's talk a little bit about it, I guess. For anyone who is just subscribed to the YouTube channel and going, what? Another podcast? What the heck is this? Let's describe it. So we've got a card game, right? And what in your mind makes this game unique? What makes it interesting? What separates it from other card games?
The first thing I think everybody, you know, has to talk about is the concept of a unique deck game, and like just the new distribution model, I guess, and new just sort of like structure around how your deck is like constructed.
I believe there's 27 bajillion decks available.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate.
I think I got my zeros right there.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, yeah, and so it's what also is interesting is that there's only the one win condition of this game, right?
Yeah.
You forge 3 keys, and when you do, you win. And I think one of my favorite parts, Mike, is going to be when your deck runs out of cards, you just shuffle them back in. I really like that. I like being able to kind of figure out, like, okay, I'm about to do a reshuffle. What do I have on the board? What do I have in my hand? How can I make the odds go in my favor when we reshuffle? I don't know if this is actually going to be an element, Mike. I've only played 3 games. One of them I did a reshuffle like 2 seconds before I won, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cool space to explore, like, regardless, and it's cool that's something to even consider. And it's nice for most people that they won't have to worry about being milled.
I was wondering if I should make the mill joke. Okay, there we go. It's been made. Yeah, so there's the one win condition. Like any FFG game, basically, you draw a hand of cards, you play cards, and then the next person plays their turn. What I really like about this game, though, is that your deck is going to have 3 houses, each with 12 cards, and at the beginning of your turn, you have to declare, this is the house I'm using. I'm using House Egg, as we call it, House Shadow. Yep. This means I can only use House Shadow cards on the board, I can only use House Shadow cards in my hand, and more shocking than all, I can only discard House Shadow cards. So, Mike, if I get a huge advantage and I get 4 discards on the board, and then I draw up a hand of every faction but House Dis, I actually have a pretty tough decision. Do I push my board advantage and not even be able to discard and know that I will never be able to play another card until I go another house, and then let you just destroy all creatures next turn and have me go, oh, or what do? I really like that mechanic, Mike. I wonder if it stops snowballs or not. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. It's really, really cool, though. Just like, I feel like it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, like, the balance of how that actually works until you play a game. And it's just, like, it's unlike any other game that I've played, and it's super, super interesting because it is that either, like, push your board advantage or, like, you know, gain additional board. And it's weird because then you draw into your hand, and it's like sometimes, like, you might have like 2 of a house, and then like another 2 of a house, and it's like, what do you do? So there's so many different things to consider.
Yeah, and what's cool is there's are characters that will say something like, ready any card or use any card. And so there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of strategy, I feel like, in going, okay, I got one of my use any cards early. I'm going to play that house first turn, even though I can't do much with it, because I'm going to set up a play, not next turn, but 2 turns from now. Because remember, everything comes into play exhausted already. So
Right.
you really like sculpting your turns down the road. Also, by knowing I got 6 cards from this house here, it means I'm not getting many later from that house, and I'll get the other ones. I feel like there's a lot of turn sculpting down the road, and anytime that's the case, I'm very intrigued by a game.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's totally like not my inclination just as a gamer, like to think ahead at all.
I take it you weren't a competitive chess player like I was?
No, I'm garbage at chess. So so it's interesting because having to think about the game in those terms, and then also trying to like just like react to what's happening on the board and like sort of adapt to what your opponent does as well. Like melding those two sort of strategies and stuff like that is really, really interesting. And like you are going to have to adapt a lot of the time because like you're not necessarily going to be able to play around cards as easily because you have no idea what's in your opponent's deck.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a segment in a bit where we delve deep into unique deck building. But yeah, you're totally right there. It's a totally different ball game when you can't go, oh, you're playing those 3 houses. I know 34 of the 36 cards in your deck. I'm really curious to see what innovations you have. Instead, it's like, how unlucky or lucky did you get with your deck pull there, sir or man?
Yeah, because there's what, like there's like over like 30 cards per house or something, like probably more than that. Because there's like 370 cards, 7 houses. So if those are split evenly, there's a ton of different possible cards your opponent can have in their deck.
You're like, wait a second. Yeah,
It's kind of insane.
going to be really interesting. And that's the part where I'm not sure how much I'm going to love or not love that element of it, right? Like, I love the fact that decks are unique. I don't know that I'm going to love the fact that what that implies beyond that, that as a player, it's harder to make those long-term plans around their deck. It almost feels like, in some way, it's going to be more of a solitaire element where you're really having to play your engine and then, like, adapting your engine to what your opponent shows you they can do.
Yeah, that's interesting too, though, because it like, your engine only exists if your deck comes with it already in it. You know what I mean? Like,
what I mean is, you will probably look at your deck before you play it, Mike.
Well,
like,
sure.
I realize your first game you just kind of threw down your deck, but theoretically you would look at it.
In theory.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, where I see it getting a bit more interesting then is like if organized play is, let's say, like a best of 3 scenario, because then you sort of start to learn what your opponent's deck can do, and then you can maybe then play around some stuff.
Yeah, I think there's. Let's talk about organized play real quick, because I think there's so many cool elements of organized play. So they've said already that you're going to like put your deck into an app, and it's going to track how many times it wins it. And when it wins, then it's going to get handicaps, which I'm guessing, Mike, are going to be the chains. For those of you who don't know, however many chains you have is like it affects how many less cards you draw per turn. So it's a huge disadvantage to even have like 2 chains. So I think that's going to balance it. But there's so many awesome things you could do, Mike. So like you're saying, you could just do a best of 3 with one deck and learn the other person's deck. But what if you did like Hearthstone tournament style, where since the decks are so cheap, you got to bring 5, and your opponent gets to ban one based on its app usage, right? It can look in the app and be like, oh, I know that deck. No. Tiny's Egg House, whatever deck. I'm banning that sucker. Yeah. You got to beat me with your 4 lesser decks, chump. I don't know. It could be really cool.
That could be awesome. The whole sort of idea of the app and like organized play integrating with like technology just totally gets me excited because of things like that. Like there's so many opportunities for just like really interesting, awesome things like that, to be able to like set up tournaments in different ways and like track a deck's like stats basically. And it's like, okay, like you're bringing it to a tournament, like the TO looks on the app and like when you start, you automatically like everybody knows you automatically start with like 6 chains or whatever. So
yeah,
just seems super interesting.
like you sit down, so intimidating. You sit down, they're like, "Dear God, you start with 14 chains." You're like, "Yep, I'm a bad mother, dude." And you're like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I don't care if I have 14 chains. My deck is still gonna roll. Eventually, you have like 1,000 chains. You start with the one card hand, just drawing what every turn.
Oh wow,
this could be wild.
Yep.
All right, let's move into then our big topic of the day, which is the unique decks and what our thoughts are. So let me start by asking you this question: are you at all worried that while I think the unique deck element is meant to make it like feel a little more casual, take out the net decking, make it feel more skill intensive at the board, are you at all worried that it becomes even more pay to win? That we realize, okay, this combination of houses is the way you want to go. You have to have these 2 cards at a minimum, and people just crack deck after deck after deck until they hit that, and everyone who hasn't is just like, oh, I got rolled again. Are you worried at all that that's going to happen?
I don't know if worried's the right word, but there's like the possibility exists for that, right? But between the like handicapping, it's like solution and stuff like that, like maybe it's not as much of an issue. Like I guess this really, like, the question comes down to like what is, like, how fast can they sort of handicap decks, and how like aggressively are they going to sort of like go for that? Because if a deck, if it is like, okay, you have to have these 3 houses and have to have like these 2 cards in it or whatever, like that deck can only win a certain number of times before it's handicapped. But then I guess maybe it makes it even more of a chase, because then like people are just gonna find like the next one that's not handicapped yet. So yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting.
I totally agree with you there that it really comes down to how aggressive they are with handicapping. What I'm also wondering is, since each deck is unique, do they handicap an archetype? And you just scan in your code the first time, it's like, congratulations, you have 18 chains! And you're like the new guy at the store, you and your buddy each bought it, and you're like, wait, what? That's a bunch of bull. I don't even know how to play Keyforge. What's a chain? So I don't know. Or are they going to say each unique deck is getting hit? I have to think it's got to be archetype, right? But the thing is, how do they know?
See, I have to think it has to be the latter. I don't know.
You think it has to be each unique deck or each archetype?
Yeah.
But so then it's this crazy chase of like, you're like, yes, I opened it, but I'm going to hold it because I have a big tournament coming. So I'm not going to play it in the little tournament. I'm going to take the lesser version of it, let that get all the chains, and then save it for Gen Con and win everything.
Yeah, right? Like the stuff surrounding that is going to be super interesting. I have no idea like how it's going to turn. I hope that it is, not something that, detracts from the game, because like nothing would be worse than that. Like that just seems like it would be awful. So
I feel like the whole point of unique decks is to add, right? To be able to say it's not about net decking, it's about skill. It's going to be very depressing if you're like, I'm just kidding. It's still totally about net decking. Just open packs till you get this one, then you're fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the other hand, it's like hopefully there's enough like variance and like differences like per deck that like archetypes don't pop up as often in general. So, but who knows if that's real or not? Like we have no idea what the algorithm looks like, what the distribution of specific cards is going to be until everybody starts opening up decks.
Yeah, and apparently one cool thing that I'm really excited about is that the decks aren't random. Like they're mostly random, but if you get something like every additional creature you play, you get a bonus. They're not going to be like, psych, you got no other creatures. Oh, doesn't that suck? Like, the tribal elements, from what I have read, there will be at least a piece of that tribal element. You might not get the whole kit to where you can just destroy people with it, but you're at least going to get a piece of it. So, I don't know if that means it limits the decks a bit, but I feel like that's a positive. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's totally positive. It's just a feel bad if you get this deck, you open it up, and like your cards just don't work together. Like if it was just a completely random assortment of cards that is like literally just random, I'm glad that it's not that, because like even though your deck was created by a computer, like at least it can, you know, try to achieve a goal.
I can function to some degree.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's some synergies in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. My other question with this is, I played the Star Wars LCG, and it's kind of a similar thing where because you are forced to play with X amount of cards, you do get to choose them, but you're forced to use a whole bunch of bad cards, at least in the beginning. There was this weird thing where you'd be like, well, the plus side is I have to figure out how to effectively use my bad cards. And I love that element. But the downside was kind of like, well, I didn't draw Luke this game, and Mike drew Vader. Good game, man. That was a lot of fun. Are you worried about that at all? Do you think that's going to work out okay? What do you think? What are your impressions so far?
I don't think I am. Because of like the way that like drawing and sort of like the whole, you know, like you can kind of draw as many cards as you want kind of thing by discarding and by playing your cards. So I think that you'll be able to get through your deck like much quicker than in a game like the LCG. Even though the LCG did have a similar thing where you just drew up to your hand size at the end, right?
It's pretty much the exact same thing, but nice try.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. So, I take that part back, but I don't know. I don't think I'm super worried about it, but yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I should be.
Yeah, I don't know either. I've played a handful of games, and there was one deck I played that was clearly a deck that wanted one or two creatures. And my opponent played that deck the first time and didn't get it and got rolled into oblivion. And then we switched decks, and I did get the big creature, and I was able to put the attachment on it that said when it dies, it goes to your archives instead of discard. And I rolled him, because it was just like, okay, he finally does kill him. Oh, he goes to the archives, and I get him back whenever I want him. So, I don't know. I think there will be some decks where that will be more of an issue with than other decks, and I think that's okay. I kind of like the idea that you know, you can open a bunch of decks and kind of figure out like, okay, do I want to play the balls to the wall combo? I get it or I don't, or do I want to play the more consistent? There's a lot of pretty good cards in this deck, and so I like the idea that you should theoretically have that choice.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's all like, again, it like sort of comes down to the organized play stuff too, because it's like, how often can a deck consistently win, and then that then like feeds into the handicap system to be able to say like, okay, now let's try to make this deck win less consistency or more consistent. Well, I guess not more, but like less like brings down those crazy decks that, you know, just roll people down to the level of everything else. So
I just got the craziest idea. This is so bad. How robust is the system going to be? Because what if this happens? What if you win a few games and you realize, oh, dang, this deck is awesome.
This deck's good.
I need to win some real tournaments with this. I need to scale it back. I need to throw a whole pile of games at this, right? You're like, I don't know. I'll discard my best cards. I don't know what I was doing. Oh, did I lose? That's too bad. Wink, wink. Saving it for Worlds. Now it has no chains on it anymore. I don't know, Mike. I'm worried now.
So
I'm worrying myself, Mike.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, like, if that is a thing that people can do, people will do it. So.
Oh, definitely. Definitely, there's people out there that will do that.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part then about these unique decks? We've talked about some potential pitfalls, maybe some worries, but what do you think is the coolest thing about these unique decks?
I like watching the in-flight report, like Richard Garfield talking about like his experiences playing early Magic and sort of like not knowing what is in your opponent's deck, and kind of every deck feels like it's yours. I think that part is really, really exciting to me, to be able to like just have a deck that I know like inside and out, and like I can play the hell out of this deck, but you know, I'm facing all these other decks that I have no idea like what to expect necessarily when I'm going. Like just sort of the like the variety and stuff is really, really interesting to me. Like the fact that there, well, hopefully theoretically, isn't as much of like a metagame, quote unquote, where it's like everybody's playing one of like even 10 decks. Like to play against a unique deck every single time I sit down at a tournament sounds awesome. So,
I agree. The allure of this game is really high. I'm just hoping beyond hope that it actually follows through and it's not like you described. So the reason I'm so excited about this game is I understand there are two Tiny Grimes. There is school year teacher Tiny Grimes, where I have this little sliver of time that is mine that I cannot use to master the meta of a well figured out game. Like my Star Wars Destiny play suffers immensely during the school year, and then I have the summer to sort of catch up and then lose it all again. So it's really enticing to me to have a game that theoretically I can just use my skill, learn my deck, and show up at a tournament and not have to have memorized every deck in the meta, every counter in the meta, and just use my skill and play. That is a very enticing element to me. Like you said, I'm a little worried. Will that actually play out? I don't know. We're going to have to see. But if it does, I think that's where this game will just catch fire and become one of the most popular games that there is, if they can find a way to do that. It's going to be a real challenge, though, I think.
Yeah, the organized play aspect of it is going to be where this game, I think, succeeds or fails. But I have high hopes. So yeah, the other thing that I really like about just like the whole unique deck system in general is like all you gotta do is buy a $10 deck.
Yeah, one $10 deck, you're all in.
You're good.
Yep. That is so. And this is another thing that I love. You can play sealed events. You just all show up. You buy your maybe you allow people to buy 2 decks, right? So they have a choice. And then when you leave the sealed event, you don't have a pile of garbage cards from sets that you already have. You actually have 2 more decks to add to your pile.
Totally.
Another thing that I think could be really fun, and this is for like the grinders out there, is to try to get bad decks hit with sanctions, right? You're like, I'm so good. Like, it could be a YouTube series. You're like, getting this deck to the top of the scales, right? And you show it, like, see, it's not that good, but I'm so good, I'm going to get it 5 chains or something absurd. Like, there's just so many fun things that you can do with this premise that I am really, really intrigued by the unique deck element.
Definitely.
All right, should we move to our card of the week, Mike?
Let's do it.
The card of the week that blew out Mike so bad his head was spinning. And Mike, it blew out me too. It blew out me too earlier. I was able to recover because I didn't have as big of a lead as you had. But yeah, so the card is Bait and Switch. If you're a Star Wars Destiny player, you already know this is going to be a blowout card.
Yep.
It is from the Shadow House, and it says, steal amber from your opponent until they do not have more than you. Is that the exact text? I believe so.
Yeah. It's like steal 1 amber, and then if your opponent still has more amber than you, steal 1 amber.
Do it again.
So you keep going until it evens it out. Yeah. I think I had like 9 and you had 0 because you had just cashed in one of your keys.
Yep. I made a key, then played that to steal a whole bunch from you, take you under 6, in fact, and put me right on the precipice of making another key.
And now, even in this game, I can not play Bait and Switch. So
let's talk about a card like Bait and Switch. Like, Bait and Switch is a card that is obviously very terrifying. And if you knew I had it in my deck, and you noticed my deck was getting low, and we hadn't seen it yet, you'd play around it. But here's my question. If someone is just playing House Shadow, how much do you play around Bait and Switch if you don't know if they have it?
Right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's I guess something that you have to keep in the back of mind, but like do you respect it? I have no idea. I think we probably have to play a lot more games with a lot more different decks to be able to answer that question 100%. And
that's going to be it's going to be so weird too for like play testing, right? You're like, I played against my friend a bunch. I know he has Bait and Switch. I play around it. You get in a tournament and you're like, I played exactly how I played against Mike and I got destroyed because that dude had none of the cards that Mike had. How the heck do you play test this game? Oh, man.
I have no idea. Yeah,
I'm so excited for this game, Mike. I feel like
it's going to be awesome, man.
Walking into a fog and hoping that like a Mack truck just doesn't run you over out of nowhere. You're just like, oh, that happened. Oh my goodness. Totally.
That's the excitement of it, right? Like that's the part that gets me pumped.
Yeah.
That I don't have to like, meta game everything and try and play around, I mean, I guess now I have to play around like 40 different cards instead of like two or three, but
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so that's the part I can't figure out if I like or not, right? Like, I like knowing the meta inside and out and playing around cards. But as I just said, School Year Tiny goes, dude, I don't know. I don't even know the cards in the new set. How am I going to play around them? So, yeah, School Year Tiny definitely loves this game. And guess what? That's only in a month, Mike. I have to transition pretty quick here to the other Tiny that no one likes to be around. He's lame and boring.
Well, he won't be when he's playing Keyforge.
Darn right he won't be. So. All right, well, Mike, I think that's going to wrap up our first episode of Keyforge. People don't know us very well, so why don't you let people out there know what your YouTube channel is, your Twitter, anything else you do.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/rebelspy. So far I've had a bunch of Star Wars Destiny videos on there, but I may start putting up some other content, including maybe Keyforge. And then on Discord I'm just Rebel Spy. Pretty much everywhere I'm Rebel Spy, and that's it.
Yeah, actually, before I talk about me, I almost forgot to mention, there's already a TTS mod for Keyforge. Go get it. It's called Super Keyforge. There's also a Discord channel. I don't know the link to it right now. I can put it in the show notes, but definitely join that group. If you want to look for me, I'm on YouTube at Tiny Grimes. I'm on Discord, Tiny Grimes. I'm Twitter. I think I'm Tiny Grimes Games. I'm basically Tiny Grimes everywhere. On YouTube, I do Switch content, Destiny content, definitely Keyforge content. So yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time, Mike. What do you think? How's the first episode looking to you?
I think it's good. I'm just excited to play more Keyforge.
So a little more Keyforge later. We're on.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone out there, thanks for hanging out with us. Welcome to the Crucible. Archons, we'll see you next week.